Today we're looking at slopes. So this is an idea that you've seen before. Feel free to put the video on 2 times speed if you want, or just kind of go through and make sure that you get what you need or what you have forgotten. Derivative constant of variation, right? You always start with that equation, y equals kx. So when we're given y equals 3, when x equals 15, we plug those two things in. So divided both sides by 15, k equals 3 15ths or 1/5. Okay. Find the constant of variation, 1/5. If we were to write an equation for that, then y equals 1/5 x. Find the value of y when x equals 2/3. So this has quite a few different fractions in it, and that's okay, right? 1/5 times 2/3. If you plug it into your calculator, just use parentheses. Otherwise, be 2/15ths. Fraction, decimal, or percent, it's fine. 1, 3, 3. So there's a note sheet if you want to follow along with it. It involves some graphing, and so that might help you to have accurate graphs. All right, so what is the slope and y-intercept in a linear function, linear equation? So first, take a quick moment to think about what you already know about slope. Right, there is a discussion board to kind of brainstorm your ideas and talk about slope. How do you know the slope of a line? So slope is always the rise over run. Think about if you're a light little person and you want to go up this hill, you have to first rise up before you can run. Right? And so my little person analogy kind of shows you that this would be a positive slope because they're going uphill. All right, up is plus, down is negative. So find 2 points that cross at a good whole number. All right, doesn't really matter where, but like a crossing point on the graph that is very clear to you. All right, the rise in this case is 2 or 6. All right, so we're up 6 and over 4. So the slope is 6 over 4 equals 3 halves. All right, that's your slope. If you look at it, maybe you picked a different one, like right here. It's still 3 over 2. And so it doesn't matter where you picked, you're still going to get that positive 3 over 2. So how do you find the slope of a line? This one is still positive, right? And we can just pick points where it crosses at a whole number. Right? This one goes up 1 over 4. So the slope is 1 over 4. Pick a different one if you wanted. 1 over 4. If it's negative, right, it's going to be going down, right? Down and over. So down 1 over 2. 1 over 2, wherever you go, it's going to have that same slope, down 1 over 2. So down 1 would be like a negative 1. If you think about a little person, right, they're going down, negative. This slope is like a little bit different. So let's think about it. It's not going anywhere. So we have a slope of 0, all right? Not going anywhere. A cool thing for writing an equation about a line like this is if you were to look at any given point, all right, this would be 0, 8, maybe we have 2, 8, this is negative 3, 8. What do you notice is exactly the same on the y value? And so we can see that y equals 8. If you want to write this in slope-intercept form, that y equals mx plus b, right? You can see that it would be 0x plus 8, a slope of 0. So that's one way to kind of write the equation and also find the slope of a flat line. A slope up and down then ties with the other one, right? One is undefined, one is 0, so this one is undefined. You can't divide by this, so the slope is undefined, we say. And that's because there is no change in y, all right? So if we are looking, or no change in x, the y changes. So this one would be 2, 4, 7, negative 7, 0, negative 7, negative 1, negative 7, 3. You can see that the x values are all staying the same. So if we were to write the equation for that, it would be x equals negative 7, where the flat line would be a y equals equation. This is an x equals equation. Slope is undefined. Right. How do you find the slope with 2 points? So any 2 points, you can label them x1, y1, x2, y2. When you're taking this equation into your calculator, please make sure to use parentheses in the numerator and the denominator. Otherwise, you're going to end up doing something wrong. You want to label this also. M is typically known as slope. Just kind of put that slope in there to make sure. So it doesn't matter the order, so I'm going to actually flip it around a little bit. But we can call this x1, y1, x2, y2. All right. If you forget, you can always refer back to your thing. Okay, y2 over y1. So I'm going to take this 6, subtract 8, divided by 9, subtract 4. I did say remember parentheses so that we don't get things mixed up with our positives and negatives. This would be negative 2 and 5 is our slope. Now, what if I flipped it around and I labeled this x2, y2, x1, y1? It's still fine. You just have to be careful to keep the one that you have in your first spot, like 1, 1, in the first spot in your equation as well. So y2 would be, in this case, negative 4, subtract 10, divided by 5, subtract 5. Negative 4 subtract 10 is negative 14. Divided by 0 would be undefined. Your calculator won't do it. Undefined. So, kind of an interesting one. Next, I'm going to go back to labeling them kind of the first one 1 and the second one 2 because that's easier to read. Y2 subtract y1 divided by x2. Y1 divided by x2 subtract x1. Use parentheses. 3 minus 3 is 0. Divided by 1 is 0. So then these are kind of 2 special cases. All right. You can't divide by 0, but you can have 0 divided by a value and end up with the slope of 0. Okay. So make sure you know what those 2 special cases look like. Right. Slope-intercept form, right, where 0, b is your y-intercept, and m is your slope. These 2 questions ask the exact same thing, just in a slightly different way. Writing an equation with a given slope and a given intercept, you're really just plugging these 2 things in. Y equals negative 1/2 is the slope, and then plus negative 2, all right? Or an easier way to think of it is y equals negative 1/2 x subtract 2. Plugging it in. Same way to call it the y-intercept 0, 2. Same y-intercept means that the x value is 0, so you don't always see that given to you in the question. Right, so write an equation with a slope of 3 and an intercept of 0, 5. So 3x plus 5. Right, so we're really just plugging these things in. So the 5 goes here, 5. We take the b portion, and then the slope 3 goes here in front of the x. the equation in slope-intercept form. So another way to think about that is solve for y equals. Okay, so get your y alone. That's what that's asking you to do. You can use algebra steps. So in this case, I'm going to start by subtracting 5x from both sides. Be careful with your signs and make sure that you keep those in order. So 4y equals negative 5x plus 16. And then divide by 4. And when you divide by 4, you're actually dividing this whole other side. You have to do what you do to one side of the equal sign, same on the other side of the equal sign. So we're dividing the whole thing by 4. So it would be negative 5 over 4x plus 16 over 4. All right, we can simplify that. 16 over 4 is 4. So our final answer, y equals mx plus b, we have it in slope-intercept form. A key thing here is to make sure that you divide the whole equation by 4, not just one piece or another. If you have fractions, all right, to get rid of fractions, multiply everything by call the least just say like the largest denominator in the bottom, or something that they're all multiplied by, least common denominator. Multiply all by a number. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to take all 3 things, all right, and I'm going to multiply everything by 4. Right? Watch what happens when I do that. So I've got 4 times negative 3 over 4x plus 4 times 1/2 y equals 4 times 16. All right? The reason I do that is it makes it a lot easier problem. I now have negative 3x plus 2y equals 64. Right. Now when I'm manipulating it, I'm not working with the fractions so much, but you don't necessarily have to do that, but I kind of like to. So plus 3x plus 3x. There are many paths through the forest. Plus 64. And then at the end, divide by 2. And again, remember to divide everything by 2. 3/2 x plus 32. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Graphing different lines. I have 3 colors, so I'll do them in 3 different colors. Right? What you want to do is start at the intercept. So in this case, it's 0, negative 5. So I'm going to go 0, negative 5. My slope is negative 2, so down 2 over 1. Down 2 over 1. Okay. I'm graphing the line y equals 3. That means that my x is going to change and my slope is 0. And so I start at that intercept point, 0, 3, and then I have a slope of 0. So that's one way to remember if your line is flat or up and down. Well, that means that this one's going to be my up and down at negative 2, right? The x value stays the same. So I go to that x equals negative 2, and I draw a line there. So I start this one. Remember the difference between the undefined slope and the 0 slope. That's the key thing. Okay, so your homework is 2.3 on Schoology. Happy solving.